I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll have a roll call.
Mayor Hassler.
Here.
Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Mooney. Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Jokers.
Here.
Alderman Jones. Alderman Stupi.
Here.
Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Rozika.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Very good.
So is Sandra not going to be here?
She said she was.
Okay. The approval of the agenda.
Approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. That takes us down to the city administrator's report.
Okay. First thing is in your packet you have a memorandum of agreement that was drafted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and Sandra can talk more about that when she makes her report. It looks like that, and we're not presenting it to you now just for you to have it and look over it, not asking for any action at this time. A subsequent meeting, we'll ask after the attorneys reviewed it and you've reviewed it. There's not much in there. There's just not much commitment. They're basically saying, we'd like to enter into this agreement, and you'll coordinate with us, and you'll support us, and you'll, okay. The more serious question will come after they're able to expand the wildlife area over in Illinois, be within the mile they need to be, and then they'll come back to us and talk about some kind of permanent acquisition or lease, or however we end up working it out so that they can spend money. You've probably been watching the water tower, pretty much 90% complete, other than painting and putting the city's name on it. I mean, they still have to batten down all the, I don't say batten down the hatches, but, tighten it up.
Are they going to be able to paint it this winter?
They hope to. I mean, it's just quit. That all becomes just kind of weather sensitive. They got to have I think they need a week of temperature above a certain level in order to paint it. Gary and I met with the construction manager, I guess you'll call him, out at the park to look at the site where the cell tower is proposed. They have since sent me an image of the footprint of it, and I asked when I got that about the lease, and they said, well, they got to send a surveyor out and do a physical survey of the property, and when the survey is complete, they will present a lease to us, a formal lease. I had a couple of ribbon openings here. We've got where Dr. Hoover was on Rozier is now a Family Dental Care. This is their St. Genevieve office. They also have an office up off Tesson Ferry, and so they spend time here and there, and there are at least two dentists in there. Younger people in their 30s. Very nice. And then right down the way there's a chiropractic's office that's been open now for a while, but they finally did the ribbon cutting. There's a grant that has not been funded for a while with the Department of the State Park Department that I heard was and believe will be funded in the near future. And they have money available to restore trails. So they said come back in December, check our website, and I did, and it's not back up yet. But hopefully in the next month or so, they'll start a funding cycle. And I would propose that we apply for a grant to restore the trail in the park. It's in such bad shape. I think that's everything I've read about it. It seems to be a perfect project for that. There would be a match, but without the dollar amount, it's kind of meaningless at this point. I'm the chairman of the Southeast District Solid Waste, Southeast Missouri Solid Waste District, and money comes to that district in order to make funding available for recycling projects. And so that grant cycle is opening up. We've always been successful in getting, like one year we got the money to replace the forklift at the recycling center. So I'm sure that they'll have something in there. We received I think I may have told you this at a prior meeting, but Missouri Public Risk rewards you if you don't make workman's comp claims. So we got the check for $5,625, which comes from our premium, so it's like a tax refund. You don't get it, however, if you submit a significant number of workman's comp claims, so we earn it. We earn it back, and it's being used to buy body armor for the police department. It needs to go to a safety-related expense, so it's a good use of those funds. We've discussed formally and informally concerns about the sewer problems. And some of the problems comes from Riverview Nursing Home. We had a number of conversations with them. Most recently, they have eliminated some of the problematic materials that were in the rooms. They were going down commodes and removed certain products from the staff's inventory. And Steve reported today that we haven't had to clean out that lift station, a couple of weeks now?
Going on 3, yes.
Yeah. So they've taken some positive steps towards solving the problem. Steve's been in conversation with the GWS as a contractor that does a lot of plumbing stuff. And so the nursing home has engaged them to work with an engineer to come up with a permanent solution to the problem, which would be, it's called a comminutor, but it's a brand of that is a muffin monster. It's just a big grinder that makes sure that nothing goes into the sewer line that is improper size. I have an item that's not on the agenda, and we're not going to make them wait, so I'm going to do it as part of my report here. But we had a resident request, so for the first time to my knowledge, the removal of a light. We've had several requests for people to add lights, a street light. And so you should need to stand at the micro.
Sorry,
Oh, you're going to give
I
me.
just had one copy, but,
It's Olive Kraus, by the way.
yeah, sorry, I'm Olive Cross, I'm in the old schoolhouse in Washington. And there's a street light that is right directly in front of my building, and it basically, my whole home, I live in the building also, and it's never dark. I don't need it. I understand when it was a school and daycare, it was probably quite necessary. And Citizens Electric is replacing the pole next week, and where Buddy's Restaurant is, they're going to be upgrading their electric, so they're doing all this work, so I thought now would be a good time to see if I could just have the light removed. Ideally, I would love to have, like on Merchant and Main and Market, all the beautiful historical low lighting is so beautiful and appropriate. And since my building is a landmark, maybe down the road, I would love to have one of those.
Things that are installed, they like don't just serve one building. They are there for safety purposes to illuminate an area. But in terms of my personal feelings, I don't really have any.
It would save the city money.
Yeah. I did ask the police department to take a look at it, however. No.
And there's page 124 and 125 in the design guidelines for the National Register of the town. It talks about lighting for a historic district specifically. And then they should be a low level of luminescence and appropriate for the building. And do not wash the entire building facade in light, which it certainly happens. I mean, it goes on and on about that. So
Exactly is the light.
let's say this is the front of the schoolhouse, and the pole is like right there, like at the corner. Now, the electric guy today did inform me that they're going to be moving it 2 feet closer to the entrance, because apparently they can't replace the pole in the exact same spot. I don't know why, but.
So it'd be
Because they
2
put the
foot.
new poles up and then they just transfer the wires. They rarely do they ever put them back. right
In
at
the same.
pole For their, that's, would be why. But
Yeah, so it'll be even
So it'd
closer.
be more towards the center of your building.
Yeah, I mean, not exactly the center, but even closer. So, and I don't know, other possibilities, can we move it across the street?
Is there a pole across the street?
Which they were gonna remove. Right at the corner of Buddy's and the driveway there to George's property back there. And I'm assuming they're gonna have lights for their parking and everything, so.
Yeah, that's good. That's my question is, when you take that light out, I drove through there and you're gonna have a dark spot through there, which would be
Well-
good for you, but you got a business going in there. I don't think they're gonna be happy with their business.
Well, maybe we can move it closer to them.
Yeah,
The other thing is, I noticed, because it's funny, when you turn from Main, like at the Main Street Inn and Lulu's building, and all the guests for the Main Street Inn park there, it's all completely dark. Like, even the guests parking and loading their luggage don't have light there. And it's funny not to have sort of light at an intersection, but, I mean, I don't need it, and I don't want it, so I don't know if it can be moved or what, if there's any
Whose
other.
jurisdiction does the location of the utility poles, wouldn't that be a citizen's?
Yeah, but,
Citizen
they'll
says
generally move a light
everyone-
if they don't have to rewire it. If there's a pole within 300 feet to an existing light, they'll do that kind of thing.
Since the whole thing's
All
being
of those
replaced, sorry.
buildings on Main Street, there's quite a alley and area back there, all the way back over to Jefferson.
There's a lot of lights on Jefferson. That illuminates my whole back garden. There's about 4 that shine directly into my garden and building back there. And they're very bright, too.
Joe Prince, you have something to say?
Is this something that requires board action, or is this something?
Well, I told Ali that the board approves when we add a light, so I just figured it's a reverse process. I mean, you should approve if we eliminate
Well, I
one.
mean, between you, the chief, and Gary, and citizens,
Well,
I mean, can you just come up with something that would serve your, or the city's purpose and her purpose?
well, from a public safety point of view, the police would take the position that you want to illuminate the area. So that's, they can speak for themselves, but that's what they told me. And that removing it, would create a dark spot that may be contrary to her interests, but serve the interest of public safety.
But how does that work with, like, Market and Merchant in Maine, where there are no overhead streetlights?
Well, not every place in the city is properly illuminated. So
Well, it's historically appropriate, which is,
well, that's a design guideline for the development of, when they tell you not to wash your house in light, they're telling you don't put a spotlight on your house. That controls.
it doesn't apply to streetlights, is what you're saying?
Yeah, not really. But the city should act consistent with preserving the integrity of the district. I think that's a reasonable statement on your part.
Yeah.
As far as contacting them about moving it, I can do that in the morning. I mean, that doesn't require board action. The question is, do you want to try to avoid removing it, in which case we'll look for the alternatives, or are you okay removing it, in which case I'll call them tomorrow and tell them to remove it.
Well, I mean, if we remove it, I mean, I understand your argument that if we add a light, well, that's adding to the cost, so that would add a board, but I don't think the board would have a problem if you guys, between you, Gary, the chief, and Citizens Electric, if you decided, yes, it can be removed or moved.
If any light that goes in at somebody's request can affect the neighbor who doesn't want it. So,
Right, but what about the neighbors down there who might want it?
There's
That's-
really,
The question I have is the rest of the neighborhood and
I mean, until, because Buddy's is coming in, that'll change, and I assume they're gonna have lighting for their parking people and who knows what else, and if the LED sign gets passed, that's a whole nother thing. But I assume they'll have adequate lighting for their customers to walk in and
Going
everything.
west from you towards Second Street, is there another one?
Yeah, on the corner, I believe it, the next one, because I'm the first one. Yeah, I think it's like the little White House there, I think
Yeah.
that's the next one there.
Yeah, I think there's one there.
Yeah.
But there's just been, between Kenny's garage there and then the next building is kind of abandoned. It's just been kind of me on that whole block for, the last 2 years or whatever, but.
I still think it's something we should get the opinion of the other neighbors, in the area, that, in all fairness to everybody there.
Yeah, I think we need to look into it.
We can ask.
It's just that they're coming next week, so I thought,
The one house next to you is vacant, isn't it?
yeah, I think somebody made an offer, so
No, it might be, okay.
I don't know if that's happening or not. But yeah, all the other ones are vacant, so. And then it's just Kathy at Lulu's, but she has her own light that I throw things at. I can't do anything about.
There's no way to shade it in any way, is there?
Yeah, we can actually put, is it a mercury vapor oil light, or is it the new LED light?
I assume it's a new LED.
It's pretty bright. Yeah, it should be.
They can put a deflector on it that would.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to have it removed if possible. And I think it just, I don't know. And a big spotlight on an old historical landmark just doesn't feel right, it doesn't look right. It affects my life because I live there and work there, so. Yeah. No one could really tell me who gets to decide that, so that's why we're here.
Well, they will do, the citizens will do whatever I ask them to do.
Because you guys pay for the light.
Right.
Yeah, but it's their pole and everything. yeah.
And they own the pole, we own the lights, they maintain the lights,
Yep.
of course. And will for the next 7 years.
Do we negotiate a new contract then in 7 years for our electric service, or?
Bought LED lights to replace the old mercury vapor lights that have a 10-year guarantee. And they were the agent for us when we bought the lights.
Gotcha.
And they honored the 10-year warranty.
Gotcha. Yeah, if it could be moved, maybe that's a possibility,
Let me call them in the morning
Okay,
and explore the possibilities short of removal.
okay.
And we'll see
I
what
just
we
thought now they're doing stuff, I might as well see what can be
First thing in the
done.
morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Lower brightness one maybe, or I don't know.
Well, they have, number one, they can move it. Number two, they can shield it. There are things they can do without removing it.
Thank you, Olive.
Thank you. Alice Springs, they cleared it and they got a stake up, but that's been a year since they've done anything more.
Well, don't ask, I'll ask what the status on it is. Okay, and finally, not finally, second to finally. Yesterday, I finally got an email from Spire, the gas company, saying, we want to come down and talk about this easement thing. And I said, well, I didn't know, who is it? You remember the guy you met with out there? I go, yeah. He said, I'm sorry it's taken so long. We had to figure out who owns that substation. What do you mean, who owns it? He said, well, there's been a change in ownership and the different divisions have been created and we had some problems figuring out who's responsible. They're coming down Monday morning. So I'm going to have the owner of the storage units in the room,
Yeah, it's
the
Chadwell
engineer
Lane.
in the room, and on Chadwell Lane, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and the gas company in the room, and we're just going to get it all worked out.
And when you talk to the gas company, I'd like to know about LaHaye Street. There's a spot where they fixed it all the way down, and then there's a spot where it's not, and it's a big hole there.
This guy won't know that, but I'll ask him.
Well, I'd like to know what's going on, but do you know anything on that, Gary?
That's the spot where during the flash flood, he eroded it, and it raised asphalt separated the two, so they have to cut a big area out and replace
Okay,
it.
well, I know it's a hazard because it's all the rocks out of it, it's a hole now.
We know who to call. Have you talked to Ballard about that
Yeah,
recently?
within the last month.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
surprised we haven't got a lot of complaints about it because it's ugly.
So I'll call him tomorrow about it, Rock.
Okay.
And finally, the treasurer of the city of St. Genevieve asked me today, is the board going to do The Christmas bonus checks that we did last year and the year before, I don't know, I'll bring it up. We did $30 for each full-time employee this time last year. The total cost is $1,260.
Did you do gift cards? or
No, we just did a check.
Check.
The gift cards cost money to buy, so.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, couldn't remember.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, sure.
We will,
So you're not actually paying them a bonus, you're just providing them with additional pay for the services they're providing in the month of December.
Absolutely.
yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah, you got
Well, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Thank you. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Have we had anything lately from the county concerning their going to participate in this bridge out here?
Well, we don't get anything formally, but I saw Gary Nelson I saw him today, we talked about it 2 days ago, and he said, yeah, that they're proceeding, and it's still going to be a couple of years for them to get the money, but they're still on it, and they're going to do it.
But it was not a walkway bridge.
No, they're going to replace the bridge.
Replacement of the bridge.
And
Put a
sidewalk
walkway on it.
Right.
A walkway on it.
But they want to eliminate that funnel problem, where it narrows down. They want to be full width all the way across with a sidewalk.
Very good. Is that it, Martin?
So Martin, where do the people stand in Point Base that had damage to their basement? I'm sure they probably contacted you.
Any person who has a claim, our policy is if you have a financial claim, you need to submit it in writing so we can turn it into our insurance company. We've had two claims.
So where do we go from there then? Do we go to Riverview?
Well, we turn it over to the insurance company. Now, going to Riverview is another matter altogether. But the insurance company is aware of kind of the situation. If they pay, then there won't be any nobody will have to provide any evidence of anything. If they choose not to pay, then there's going to be a court case, and Riverview would probably get involved in the court case.
It's not our fault that it happened, so not the city's problem. It was a mess.
I'm aware of that.
Is that in addition to the claim we already had?
Well, you mean the case we currently have?
Well, we had one that I knew of.
We currently have an active lawsuit over
Right.
roots that were in the lateral, and that's up on Riverview. This is the clog that was caused by a blockage in the main on Point Base area, on Point Base Drive and Briarwood. And they got some backup in their basement because of this ball of stuff that was in there.
Right.
There was at least 3 properties, and one had major damage.
And
Or
so-
to Genevieve, they had to take out sheetrock there.
When, I can't make them whole for their losses in terms of like personal property or whatever, but they have to make just a monetary claim so we can turn it over to the insurance company.
Right.
And where are we at with renovations?
The plans are done as of on the police department. Steve was in taking final measurements earlier in the week, so we ought to have the plans for that next week, and we'll be ready to go back to the contractors with a set of plans. Let's see where we stand.
Okay. All right. Alliance Water?
Good evening. You guys got the report in front of you. You guys got any questions on anything?
Well, they don't know about the ultraviolet system, so, I mean, there was a major, well, you tell the story.
UV system was flooded. We had somebody from Suez come down and do an assessment, and I don't know if you got the numbers from Steve on that, Martin, by chance. I do not have them.
I do now.
Okay. And then,
Bring them up to the number, and I'll tell them about the numbers.
okay. And then also we had a couple people come down and give us a price of a whole new system instead of replacing the existing system.
The repair was in the $140,000 range. The replacement's in the $150,000 range. You get a better system and one that can be submerged, so you
Yes.
never have to face this problem again. The insurance, we turned it into insurance, and we believe it to be covered. So the cost of replacing it will be subject to our deductible, but
And they're still getting back, they haven't got back with us yet on the amount of the deductible.
we won't have to swallow the entire cost at any rate. And my recommendation will be that we not try and fix the broken one, that we go ahead and get a new one. So I instructed Steve, and I guess Corey's working on it, and putting it out for bid, because it's at that level, we've got to obviously put it out for bid, and we may as well start doing that.
The existing system has all the controls down in the pit, and you can't move them up because there's a restriction on the length of
Yeah, it's a
line. So-
disinfecting system. It's
Yeah.
the sewage comes through and is exposed to the ultraviolet light, and that you don't want to put in the Mississippi River or eliminate it. We will not have it in place in time to meet our discharge requirements by spring, but we can chlorinate. So what we'll be manually disinfecting while we're waiting for the system to get fabricated and installed. So we're not going to violate any of our discharge limits. All right, now Ron's got something to say.
Good evening, folks. My name is Ron Smith. I think you probably recognize my face, but this is the first time I think I've taken the podium. I'm the division manager for Alliance Water Resources, and St. Genevieve is one of the divisions. Of course, Steve is not here tonight, and I just, on behalf of Alliance, I wanted to thank you for your allowing us to continue to serve the good people of St. Genevieve. We appreciate our relationship and look forward for many more years. With that, the contract, our agreement, has a term in it that regarding repairs. And so every year we budget repairs, and if we come in under, which Steve and Corey do a really good job here managing their budget, we refund the difference back to the city. And so tonight we're happy to report that we have came under budget again, as we have the last several years, I believe, to the tune of $3,790. Martin has the check that, and so once again, thank you, and we're proud to serve. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Sandra?
I explained the memorandum of agreement. So
Thank you.
they understand.
I won't explain it twice. Good evening, everyone. You have my report in front of you. I'll hit the high points. Our November guest count was up about 13% over November last year. We were closed one day due to snow. We ended the year slightly ahead on our passport sales. At this time of year, we don't sell passports because several of the historic sites shut down for the winter due to usually no heat in the buildings. We had a very successful Cookie Crumb Trail event. The Welcome Center was again served as the starting point for that. We have had several meetings with gentlemen from the Missouri Bicentennial Commission, and I gave you a copy of sort of a summary about the types of programs that they're planning right now for Missouri's Bicentennial, which is in 2021, and it's never too early to start planning. If you're like me, you might notice that the state of Missouri's flag has the Roman numerals for the year 1820 and not 1821 in it. So, of course, I was curious. So I asked Bob Mueller, and he asked, what's the history on that. And in case anyone ever asks any of the aldermen, you'll know, it does say 1820 on the Missouri state flag. It took a long time to get Missouri into the United States as a state. If you remember your history, it was the Missouri Compromise that allowed that to happen. So it took it took several years for it to happen, but we didn't become an official state until 1821. So in 2021, we will be celebrating the 200th anniversary of that. So now you know, and if anybody asks you, you'll have the answer to that trivia question. And we have, Martin already talked about the progress that we've been making on the memorandum of agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and have been making continued progress with the National Park Service. The best guess is that they will be open by the beginning of our tourism season for the summer of 2019. You do have a resolution on your consent agenda this evening that supports the preferred name of the St. Genevieve National Historical Park with the word St. Genevieve spelled out S-A-I-N-T-E. This is the preference of our future superintendent, and he asked that the city and the county provide a resolution of their support for that, so you have that in front of you tonight. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chief?
Good evening. As City Administrator Toma reported, Steve Bacon is moving right along on the plans for the PD. He's still got to do some structural assessments for the entrances that we're wanting to cut, and there's some air conditioning issues in here as far as ductwork that we got to work around, but everything is rolling right along. Hopefully we'll be able to put that out to bid in January and have something for you by February, I hope. So we'll see. As soon as that is ready, I'm going to be chugging right along on that. So a couple things. We are up to full staff. So the training process is moving right along on that. We've got a couple guys out on their own now that are doing well. And I've also got what's the word I'm looking for here? An ordinance on the agenda, in the consent agenda, to make application for some portable radios. So it would replace all of the patrol officers' radios. Lieutenant Crump and I got a couple new radios a few years ago, so they're still serviceable. So we'd be asking to replace 9 radios, just with different antenna issues and mic issues and battery issues and programming issues, and some of them are dead altogether. So hopefully that will be favorably viewed by the committee. So other than that, we're just plugging along. So everybody seems to be doing pretty well, and if you guys have any issues, please feel free to relay them. So any questions? Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Takes us to committee report. Joe, you have anything on planning and zoning? See, you're reappointing board mayor.
Will, it's coming up.
Yeah.
It's been a long dry spell, Joe.
Next month we'll have some.
Okay, good deal. That takes us down to our consent agenda. That's our closed session to look at. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. Second.
I heard first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to new business. Bill number 4255, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a right-of-way easement between the City of St. Genevieve and Citizens Electric Corporation.
The quick description of this is they're going from overhead to underground service to the museum, but in order to do that, they need to get out into the South Cabaret and area line, and our code of ordinances require that we have a an easement for things like that.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes, please, that would be good, because they need to get to work.
Whatever. Motion for a second reading?
Second.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
All right, so takes us to an ordinance, bill number 4255, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a right-of-way easement between the city of St. Genevieve and Citizens Electric Corporation. This is second reading.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Need a roll call vote?
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Donovan?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers? Yes. Alderman Stupi?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Rozika?
Yes.
6 yes, 0 no's, 2 absent. Bill number 4255 now becomes ordinance 4187.
Thank you. Takes us to bill number 4256, an ordinance vacating a portion of Lacombe Street in the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri.
Motion to approve?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. It takes us down to bill number 4257, an ordinance amending chapter 420, the floodplain regulations, article 1, statutory authorizations, finding of facts and purposes, section 420.010, D1, article 2, general provisions, sections 420.030, lands to which chapter applies, article 4, provisions for flood hazard reduction, section 420.140, general standards adding G, section 420.150, specific standards, A12, section 420.160, manufactured homes, B, C, you're reading the next one. 1, adding section 420.235, conditions for approving variances for agricultural structures of the City of St. Genevieve Code of Ordinances.
So in anticipation of some questions, Dave's going to tell you all about this.
Well, I emailed you all the long version of this, if you have any questions. But basically, you're doing what we have to do every so many years and update the map numbers. In addition to that, we're raising the freeboard from 1 foot to 2 foot. Makes things safer for our emergency personnel. Lowers insurance rates for anyone who builds in the future. Doesn't affect those already built. And adding
1 foot to 2 foot is the elevation above the 100-year flood elevation that you must be in order to build in the floodplain.
And adding a stipulation for building agricultural structures, which you would need a variance to do anyway, but this just puts a few stipulations on that variance. We have the same thing for accessory structures. This is just suggested, and several other local communities have the same stipulations. Any questions?
Now, what is the level? As far as you're saying 2 foot of freeboard, what's the?
Depends on where you're at. The base flood level varies depending on where you live in relationship to the water.
And they sort of modified that recently, haven't they? They've changed a lot of those.
These maps will change some of that. They go into effect February 15th, and if you don't live in the floodplain now and you're going to live in the floodplain, it would behoove you to get flood insurance now.
Dave, is this agricultural? Is this the pole barn structure?
It would be any structure built for agriculture purposes, no residence, no commercial use, just basically to store feed or equipment or things like that.
But it doesn't limit the type of structure?
Just an agricultural structure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now the mayor will entertain a
Motion
motion.
to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion for a second reading? It's not necessary?
Dave said.
Oh, is it necessary?
It would be wonderful if we could have 2 readings tonight. Make a motion for a second reading.
Second.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please. You can come up and read it. Is that okay?
Is this a punishment?
Yes.
He hasn't gotten his breath back from the last.
That's right, a lot of reading. We have a motion, the first and a second to do the second reading, right?
Am I good to go?
All, yeah, everybody's
Or do I need to read it?
Go ahead. Now we'll read the second reading.
Bill number 4257, an ordinance amending Chapter 420 floodplain regulations, Article 1, statutory authorization, findings of fact and purposes, Section 420D1, Article 2, general provisions, Section 42030, lands to which chapter applies, Article 4, provisions for flood hazard reduction, Section 42140, general standards, adding G, Section 42150, specific standards A12, Section 42160, manufactured homes BC1, adding Section 420-235, conditions for approving variances for agricultural structures of the City of St. Genevieve Code of Ordinances.
Motion to approve?
Second. I'd like to have a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Rozika?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Stupi?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Donovan?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
6 yes, 0 no's, 2 absent. Bill number 4257 now becomes ordinance 4188.
Thank you very much. In other business, you can see, I would like to, the hospital came to the board,
Bless you.
in favor of an ordinance about smoking regulations. We had pretty much everybody's here, we had a town hall meeting about it. The hospital showed up, citizens showed up. As I recall in the town hall meeting, there was no, other than the hospital being there, all the rest of it was against it. And rather than just let this thing out there and die, I would like to see what the board thinks about this, either to go forward with this thing or to put it to bed, and I'd like to
Put on ballot.
I agree.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the authority to do that.
So if we don't have the authority, then how can it still end up on the ballot?
Some cities have the authority to enact ordinances by a referendum or initiative. Fourth-class cities don't have that ability. So I provided Martin with a legal memorandum about that. The fourth-class city just cannot submit an ordinance to a vote of the people for it to be passed. It's just not effective. So the option is for you to discuss it and make a decision, or to not. If it's something that it is.
I believe it's there's not many places in St. Genevieve that even allow it anyways, and I don't think the city has any business telling any landowner what they can allow inside their business, as long as it's legal there elsewhere. I know some of the issue is secondhand smoke. We all know it's dangerous to leave your car running in your garage in a closed structure. Yeah, smoking is dangerous in a closed structure. There is no evidence to say that secondhand smoke in an open area is any more dangerous than a car running in an open area. Everything that the hospital presented to us at that meeting was what the concentration of smoke is inside your vehicle and inside a building. It's a legal activity, and I believe that most of the businesses in town have already made that decision. And I think if they want to do the legwork and educate the ones that haven't into passing whatever they want to do on their own property, then that's up to the hospital to take that initiative to do. It's not the government's or the city's responsibility to do.
Well, I don't think we could, if somebody decides to smoke in their vehicle, we can't stop that.
But that was the one that...
Yeah, right, that was talked about, but...
Did this pertain to public buildings?
It would be public spaces. So some communities have it extend to open areas like parks, some don't. Some control, if you were to adopt it, you would be prohibited within so many feet of an entryway or an open window, those kinds of things. They address it in overnight lodging facilities, and there's just lots of permutations of it.
Okay.
we're targeting more towards public in their conversation, yes.
Right.
I think there's not really any businesses around here that even allow it anymore, so it's really a non-issue.
I agree with what Joe said. I think it's kind of a moot point.
And the lack of support at the meeting, there was 11 people there, 7 of them were from the hospital. 2 were police officers, didn't count the Board of Aldermen, but the rest of them were against it. I don't see where there's a need for us to do anything. It's already fixing itself and correcting itself, the ones that...
Yeah, I've been frequent a lot of places downtown. I've never been bothered by it downtown where there's a big concentration of people. I've been bothered with it a little bit at like a Country Mart. You'll see they're smoking. They have those smoking all the way along the square, all the way along those buildings. They have smoking receptacles, which is good, which we need that. But unless you have a group of employees out front smoking in a business, I've not been in trouble with it. So that's the only thing I want. I just don't want this thing sitting out there that they never acted on it. Well, we'll make a decision, yay or nay, and I'll be on the record. I don't see a need to do it.
It's something that's already taken care of itself. Business owners are already making that decision for us.
Right. I agree with Joe and Randy. I'm not sure it's the city's responsibility, to do that. I do own a business in an area that did enact it. I guess it was about 3 years ago, and and it basically puts the liability back on the business owner to enforce it. Somebody walks into your business and they're smoking, you could be held liable. I don't agree with that. I think it's a choice, and I just don't think we need to be a part of it.
It's a tough one to deal
It still got on the ballot there, and it still got passed, but not by the city's doing.
And who's to say could a citizen say, hey, we want to decide to vote on this for it to ever get on a ballot? Or the hospital, could they?
Not in a fourth-class city.
Okay.
Yeah. So not in a fourth-class city. So you're a fourth-class city. So the only way an ordinance gets passed in this city is by passing it through the normal procedure at a Board of Aldermen meeting.
Couldn't they do like a non-binding referendum?
Well, I looked into that. There's nothing that authorizes it, although there's nothing that prohibits it either. And so the question really is whether or not the expenditure of the funds for a non-binding referendum is allowed. Generally, the power of the city is such that it is what has been delegated by the legislature, and so my default position is if the legislature doesn't allow for you to do it, or there's not a provision under the city's general police powers to do something, then I'm going to advise against doing it. If you want to take a poll, you can pay a polling company to take a poll. But I think I don't understand why third-class cities can have an ordinance passed by initiative or referendum, and fourth-class cities can't, but that's the way it is.
But that fact kind of mitigates against any conclusion that we could spend public dollars on a referendum.
Correct.
They must have, purposely or not, they obviously thought about it for one class of city versus another.
Well, period, I thought. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they considered it. Fourth-class cities are generally smaller too, and so you're more responsive because you don't have as many people that you represent. So that I presumably the thought behind not having an initiative or referendum allowed in a fourth-class city is because you're so close to the number of people that you represent that you ought to know, I guess. But it's just I've looked at it, and I would advise against it. It's you're elected to pass the ordinances, and so you either do or you don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Also, my experience in speaking with my constituents was overwhelmingly that the people I've spoken to don't want this. Maybe the hospital does. But the general population I talked to,
Doesn't.
matter of fact, most of them were pretty upset at the thought of regulating it. You know, in particular, when you have private clubs where, you know, there'll be a smoking area or whatever, they don't want somebody coming in there and telling them they can't do that.
You know,
I don't smoke, I don't like the smell of it, but I don't think we should tell people what they should do. I just.
But you're trying to get that attention. Private clubs, smoking.
Yeah, so I take it it's the favor of the board not to pursue this. Okay.
I vote.
You hear? Everybody?
I heard.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any other communication? I would like to have a motion that we are able to go into closed session
For real estate.
for real estate.
Motion to go into closed session for
Second.
real estate?
I'd like to have a roll call, please.
Alderman Smith.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yeah.
Alderman Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yep.
Alderman Rozika.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6:50.
Count it.